Welcome to the Maasto Fitness podcast. Today, in episode 34, we are talking about cold weather challenges and the things you can do to feel better and fuel better while you're out there. So, this is a quick hit podcast where we keep them short and to the point, focusing on the things you can do off the bike to race faster and safer. At Maasto Fitness, we work with racers remotely in the real world. Many have a life full of commitments and don't have a lot of time to train off the bike or ride. We provide training off the bike so days on the bike, whether riding or racing, are faster and safer. And like I said, today we're going to focus on the cold weather. Right now it's October here in Michigan, so in the Midwest it's starting to cool down a little bit. And there's a couple things we can do to help ensure we're performing, not draining the tank too much, and set up to perform at our optimal level right from the time the gate drops, the scorecard changes, the flag raises, you start your bike to go ride, whatever it may be. So we'll go ahead and hop right into it. So first, in the cold, and you may have experienced this before, you do a cold race and you notice you're not thirsty the whole time you race. If you're doing a race that requires a hydrator, you notice your hydrator is still pretty full. You're just not drinking as much. Now, when we're cold, we might not, we don't have that kind of like thirst reaction like we do when it's warmer. So it's not best practice to drink to thirst. In general, we don't want to drink to thirst. We want to be on a fueling schedule and know how much we need to hydrate and when. But in the cold, it's even tougher because you just don't feel thirsty. So it's important to make sure that you've got a fueling plan and you stick to it, even though you're not feeling like it. Like you're out there here in October, November ripping along and you notice you haven't drank in a while compared to the summer. Well, our body still has those same needs. We're still sweating. We're still doing a lot of work. It's just with those cooler temps, that rating of perceived exertion is dropped a little bit, and the sweat is evaporating from our body quicker, and we don't notice that we're still losing the same amount. So make sure that in these cooler temps, you're still keeping up on fueling. So come into those ride and race days completely hydrated. While you're out there, make sure you're staying hydrated. And then after, of course, make sure you're refueling the body. We've got plenty of podcasts that go deeper into hydration. I think the key takeaway here is when it gets cold, you still need to stick to your fueling plan, even if you don't feel like it. So you get done racing. Like I said, we've got more podcasts on it, but basically for every pound you lose while you're racing, which is lost through sweat, you need to rehydrate with about 16 ounces. Those are really rounded numbers per pound lost. So you need to make sure you're rehydrating after the race as well, even though you might not still feel it just because it's so cool out. Uh, now, in addition, making sure that when you're out there, I should just put this one last disclaimer in. Make sure you're having a sports drink. Make sure you're having at least a drink that's rich in electrolytes. And in short, electrolytes are what help our body absorb the water we're giving it. So that's sodium, potassium, calcium, but sodium's kind of the biggest player there. So making sure you're not just drinking water, you're drinking some type of electrolyte sports drink mix helps your body absorb that water that you're putting into your body as well. Get it to working muscles, help your body perform better as well. So next, nutrition. Now, in cooler temps, as the temps get cooler, actually we do burn a little more calories, and that's just because our body is and knows it's cold and it wants to make sure our body stays in homeostasis, so at the correct temperature. So our body will increase its calorie burn a little bit just to make sure the body's staying at the correct temperature. So you add those cooler temps, a little bit of increased energy burn, and then our needs while we're riding and racing, we're burning a lot of calories. So making sure you're really staying up on calories isn't like something you need to make like a big swing or a big adjustment in calories, but I will say two good tips are don't stray from your normal fueling plan. And if you notice yourself being a little more hungry, that's absolutely normal and okay. So make sure you get more calories. And as you start to pay attention to these things, you might start to notice, oh, I need like 50 to 100 more calories an hour when the temps are cold compared to like warm days. So just keep an eye on that, something that you can help, something that you can kind of dial in for yourself, but know that the body's trying to maintain a certain temperature. Cold temps make the body burn a little more calories to make sure that we're maintaining that homeostasis, that correct temperature. And with that in combination with your just normal nutrition needs while you're out there riding, those two things combined, you might need a little more. So stay on top of it and make sure that make sure that you're keeping notes. I know it's kind of tedious, but keeping notes of what's going on and how you're fueling and how it's feeling and everything can just make such a big difference. You're able to reflect back and make the correct adjustments going forward. And then, of course, when we're riding, same deal. That mix of high carbohydrate and simple carbs are important. So easily digestible, same stuff you've had before you race, daring. And then after, I always suggest, avoid those heavy, greasy foods, even though they are very tempting. Getting in just a high quality carbohydrates, protein, and some fat, going to do you wonders with helping you recover and feel better quicker and sooner. I'll once again reference, we've got lots of podcasts on fueling. I've got ones where I just walk through the examples of exactly what I do and why I do it. We've got a whole 45-minute podcast on our YouTube channel where I dive deep into nutrition and that. So lots of resources for you to go deeper into that. But just know the calorie burns up a little bit when you're cold. Now, next, another thing with cold temps are probably more than likely riding in layers. So we'll go ahead and just go right to you're out there riding. You're probably putting on more layers and probably starting with a base layer that maybe you normally don't have. So maybe normally you've just got on, in the warmer days, your jersey and your riding pants. But in cool temps, you've got like a base layer. And it's important to make sure that base layer is a synthetic fabric. So if a synthetic fabric and or wool help pull moisture away from the body and help it evaporate. So when we're riding, we're sweating, we've got more layers on. We want our body to be able to pull that. We want our gear, our clothing, our technical clothing, to be able to pull that moisture away and help it evaporate. If you wear cotton, for example, unfortunately, that's going to do the opposite. So cotton's going to absorb that fluid and hold on to it, and just make a wet, slopping mess. And then if you slow down, take a break, if you're riding, whatever, doing like an enduro or motos, you're just going to get cold. You're going to just be wet and cold, where that performance fabric is going to evaporate and pull things away. So I highly suggest making sure you invest in some performance gear. When you're looking around, pretty much anything that says it's like for performance or athletics, is what you're looking for. All that stuff is going to be designed to help pull moisture away from the body and keep you feeling better, performing better, and also just helping keep you safe from getting too extreme cold while you're out there riding or racing, if you're taking breaks. So making sure you've got that base layer on. And then next, in terms of if you're doing layers, depending on conditions, what type of racing you're doing, sometimes you might want something that's like waterproof, but know as you're looking at gear, there's waterproof gear that's breathable and not breathable. So non-breathable, you're just going to be like a sopping wet mess. It's going to be like literally a swamp inside of whatever waterproof thing. If you're on a waterproof top, you're just like making a humid swamp. So make sure you get something that's waterproof but breathable. Once again, these performance fabrics, when you start reading about it, you'll start to see the options and what's the best for you. Now, before we ride, a big thing always we suggest to warm up, making sure you warm up. Cold days, hot days, whatever. But on a cold day, a couple considerations you can do. So when we warm up, we want to help warm up the cardiovascular system, warm up our muscles, keep everything warm, because a warm muscle is a muscle that's ready to perform and ready for action. So while you're doing that warm up, making sure that you're staying warm, you're not underdressed, and then making sure that you're staying a little bit, maybe even overdressed as you come into the start of the race. So if you're doing a warm up and then rolling up to the line, if you can, if you've got someone else there with you, make sure you keep on that jacket or whatever it is you have, thicker gloves, as close as you comfortably can to the start is what I would suggest. And the idea there is, right, we want your body warm, ready for action. And if we don't have on a jacket or we come to the line too underdressed on a cold day or cold, windy day, by the time we start, we're kind of all cooled down and a little seized up. So overdressing is definitely the way to go. Really, the only time I would ever suggest it. You'll feel really good, 15, 20 minutes in. We've all maybe had that feeling before. We've done that in the first couple minutes, and a cold race can be kind of intense or riding because you're like freezing. But once you get past that point, it feels really good. So keep that in mind. You want to be warm while you're sitting there for the line, waiting to start. Not too warm, but enough to just help keep a little bit of that heat in. And then once you get going, it won't feel great taking off that warm jacket, but your body will find its groove and you'll find its groove and everything will mesh. So those are my tips for you for this cold weather days as they're coming up. I know like the Ironman GNCC is this weekend, a big race. I think a lot of these tips could be applied there, making sure that you stay hydrated and fueled as always, making sure that you understand that your body does need a little bit more calories. So making sure you've got a plan to be able to increase your calories a little if needed in cool temps. And then before the race, making sure you stay warm. Like you've got layers on, you've got the correct base layers on for when you're racing, and that'll help you perform the best. So that's it for this week. Hopefully that helps you as the temps get cool and help you performing at your best. Now, at Maasto Fitness, we build strength, endurance, and mobility training for riders and racers. We got tons of resources, fueling resources, nutrition resources. We got a monthly group call that any racer on any one of our programs can jump on and get their questions asked. And if that's something you want to try, send me a message on Instagram and I'll give you a free week of our single jump training program. So talk to you guys later.